if we want to benefit from reading the scriptures, it is not just enough to do devotional reading, taking the Bible, the Word of God, literally. We must always try to understand the context of how the passage was written. Who wrote it? What were the addresses? What were their concerns? What was the historical context? What were the cultures of the people during that time? Unless we know all this, we will be interpreting the text wrongly, because we will not be interpreting the text according to the spirit it was written, because contexts have changed. It's very important, therefore, right interpretation of the scriptures, we must understand that many things, many factors have to be considered. It is true that the Bible is the inspired word of God. God is the divine author. But this does not compromise the very fact that God uses human authors to convey some theological truths. The human authors will use whatever circumstances they were in, whatever stories they knew, whatever rituals they were practicing, whatever laws that they found during that time, whatever events that they have gone through, and they will use all these as examples to illustrate the truths of God. So there is also a very important part where the human authors play in the formulation of the Word of God. That's the reason why the Word of God cannot be read literally. The inerrancy of the Bible refers to the theological truths that is conveyed by the Bible. Not all those historical details. These are means to convey the truth. And it is within this context then we can understand why Jesus challenged the scribes and the Pharisees. Because they were practicing the law, which is a good thing. But they have failed to contextualize the laws. They were trying to interpret the laws literally, meticulously, observe the laws, and apply it to every situation. But they forgot the spirit of the laws of Moses. All the laws of Moses were basically to help people to worship God and to practice justice and charity towards their brothers and sisters. The laws were meant to serve men, not men serve the laws. And so that is why Jesus, he quoted 3 examples from the scriptures to counter the scribal narrow interpretation of the law. That these laws could be broken. In some circumstances, these laws do not apply. The first example he did was taken from David and his men. They took the consecrated loaves when they were hungry because they were in emergency. They were fleeing. And they took the loaves to eat, which was meant for the priest. The high priest, Ahimelech, gave it to them. It was an exception because the hunger of the people takes precedence over the laws. Charity is even more important. Again, Jesus quoted an example where the priests, during Sabbath, they break the law because the priests have to prepare, have to work, prepare the sacrifices. If they were to observe the Sabbath law, no one can do anything. That's why even for us, Christian, for us priests, in fact, we are working the hardest on Sunday. So many services, so many people meeting us. Because that's the time when people come to worship. And somebody has to prepare all this, celebrate the Mass. Same thing too, on Sundays, where people who are involved in public services, whether it's transport, hospital, they have to go to work. They're not breaking the Sabbath. Because of the need again of the people. And finally, Jesus took the example of Hosea giving us the right spirit. He says, what I want is mercy, not sacrifice. At the end of the day, when we interpret the scriptures, when we interpret the laws, we must ensure that this is really given for the good of others and for the work of love.